Hi, I'm Michael Killen. There are some great challenges in the world that threaten the state of California, the nation, and beyond. I have invited Elton Sherwood. He is the Executive Director of the Carbon Zero Institute. I'm going to ask him a series of questions about those big challenges that threaten us.
Well, of course, it might be water. It might be climate. It might be a catastrophe someplace else in the world. But climate is a real contender for being our most serious problem. So where we are at the moment is baked into what we've done over the last 100 years is about 7 degrees of future temperature rise in Sacramento, in the Sierras, in the foothills. So that is truly astonishing. That will be a different Central Valley, different ecosystems. I wouldn't be buying a ski resort this year. We're going to see many of the ecosystems in the state and, of course, around America and around the world change. And I think we're almost at a point where we're not going to be able to hold it to 6 degrees Fahrenheit over the land. So, you know, a lot of the worry today is what can we do to hold it to 6 to 7 degrees as opposed to 10 to 20 degrees. But even at 6 degrees, that's a huge change.
So let me see if I understand. In the Sierras, I should not buy a ski resort. Is that what you're saying?
I think that the snow season is going to get shorter and shorter,
okay.
And we even saw it this year. It's going to be harder and harder to make a living off of snow in California.
Rough to get a good return on investment in a very short time.
And of course, for the bigger problem for the state is as the snow season shrinks, then the water that's stored in that it goes away, and we have problems with water.
Oh yes, and I don't want to buy a house in Sacramento. It's already boils up there in the summer.
Well, you certainly wouldn't want to buy a house without a good air conditioning.
Okay, and I wouldn't get into the wine business in Napa because it might be good for very, very sweet grapes that, I don't know, but not much else. What do you think of that?
So, you know, Stanford has done extensive modeling of where the good wineries are going to be located in 50 years, and they're going to be significantly further north than they are today. Now, having said that, California vintners have deployed ever more sophisticated technology to deal with the changing climate. So certainly the way we grow grapes today is going to be hugely challenging as we move through the century.
Okay, but now you also talked about the snow melt, and
Yes.
we are dependent on that snow melt, not just us in the Bay Area, but the Central Valley.
Right.
And that means water will become an increasingly challenging resource for all of us, drinking, farming, industry, etc. And since you said the temperature, I believe, is going to rise in the Central Valley, there'll be acres and acres of land that may not be usable. Am I correct?
Well, that's true. Hopefully, we will develop ways to grow crops using less water and crops that are much more resilient to both drought and increased temperature. But the mix of crops that we have today and the way we grow them today is not going to be what we're doing in 25 or 30 years. We are going to have to make changes.
So if the temperature rises around here 6 to 7 degrees, then the ocean, the water, is also going to heat up a little bit?
The ocean water will heat up a little bit. The water over the ocean will heat up a little bit, but nowhere near as quickly. The ocean is a huge thermal sink, and it takes much longer for water to heat up.
Okay, so if the temperature rises more here or there, the wind patterns will change.
Absolutely. And very extremely difficult to predict how the wind patterns. So predicting the weather in Sacramento is going to be considerably easier than predicting the weather in Palo Alto or in the coastal transition areas for exactly the reason that you bring up.
Are you also depicting an increased frequency of weather events?
Yes, so what's happening is there's about 4% more moisture in the air worldwide today than there was when we were children in a previous century. And that is causing larger precipitation events, and they are happening with increased intensity. So we have a strange world where we're seeing more droughts, warmer temperatures, but when it does rain, it tends to come down with more intensity. So you'll see more floodings, you'll see, and that could give us problems here in California as well.
Okay, you are describing great change, which affects every aspect of this state, I would say. Industry, farming, healthcare, where people live, where they work, etc. The weather that we enjoy, everything is up for grabs. Would that be correct?
Yes, I guess I would also say we are a very wealthy society with a great deal of technology, and the change will happen slowly, and so I think a lot of it we will adapt to, but we're going to have some years where we have heavy snowfall followed by very heavy warm spring rains on top of the snow. We don't have the capacity to deal with it. We're going to have some floods that we've not seen the likes of in recent decades. Weather is going to become a bigger part of our lives, and just as I would not invest in a ski resort, I would think investing in the Weather Channel would be a good bet. They're going to have lots of news to report for the next 100 years.
So a lot of this means expense. I mean, money has to be spent to beef up the infrastructure, move it, etc., prepare for storms, whatever. And it is correct. And so you're the Carbon Zero Institute. And we'll get to what it is, but these changes are driven by man-made, which trigger some events that even release more and more carbon and other greenhouse gases up there, which trap the heat. As a layman, is that it?
That's exactly right. I think maybe one thing I would add to it is it's caused by burning things. It's caused by burning coal, it's caused by burning oil, gasoline, diesel, natural gas, wood, burning down forests so that we can grow more crops, and burning down forests so that we can raise more cattle. But at the the core of this is we are burning too much stuff.
Okay. And now my question, what is the mission of your organization, the Carbon Zero Institute?
So it is to get the emissions of carbon worldwide to zero. And that may seem like an ambitious enterprise, but the air already has too much carbon in it. We are like the bathtub in the background. The air is full. That bathtub needs no more water in it, and the atmosphere needs no more carbon. And we're going to have to get to zero. And we called the Institute Carbon Zero because we wanted to envision the solution and then talk about, okay, what are we going to do? What does that mean for electric generation? What does that mean for housing? What does that mean for transportation? What does that mean for food production?
Okay, well, could you give me a particular application that you are suggesting a solution for?
Well, one of our projects has been around methane and natural gas. Most of us in California are familiar with natural gas because either our stove, our oven, our water heater, or our home heating uses clean burning natural gas. It's sometimes referred to as a transition fuel because it is so clean burning. It is 99% methane. So sometimes you'll hear people talk about methane or natural gas. You can use the two interchangeably. The natural gas that we have in our house has some odor added to it that is not natural in methane, so that if you leave your burner on or it doesn't ignite or there's a problem, you'll smell it. But natural gas and methane, you should think of them together. And while natural gas is enormously clean burning, if it's not burnt, if it leaks into the atmosphere, it is 30 to 100 times more damaging than CO2. And we've seen in the last 5 years a fairly dramatic uptick in the amount of natural gas or methane in the atmosphere. Very troubling.
What's causing that?
Well, we don't know, and I'll take you through who the list of suspects are, but our contribution to this dialogue as an institute has been at the center of the world's technology. The answer is not we don't know. We really need to go out with instruments and figure out where all this methane is coming from. So it could be coming from the permafrost in the Arctic melting. It could be bubbling up through the ocean. It could be coming from leaks in the distribution system in cities as the natural gas is plumbed through the cities. It could be coming from old appliances in people's homes.
Really?
And it could be coming as a result of fracking.
Well, fracking, am I correct? They go down about 2 miles and they're looking for both oil in some cases, and they're looking for natural gas.
And they often get a mix of the two.
And they get a mix, and the process, you're saying, as the methane comes out, it leaks out unburnt into the atmosphere.
Yeah, you don't need very many leaks to really create a problem. So to give you a sense of it, a 2 to 3% leakage in natural gas from the wellhead to your kitchen, if over that, and often thousands of miles, hundreds of valves, compressors, seals, you lose 2 to 3%, you would probably be better off using coal.
Okay, but I hear everyone talk about greenhouse gases, and it's primarily some trace gases, I think,
right?
But really primarily carbon dioxide, and I hardly ever hear the word methane. And then what I'm really concerned about is, what do you do when there's a problem like an increasing emissions of methane, burnt or under, whatever?
Well,
what does your organization do?
So we like orphan projects. We're a small little institute, and we look for problems or ideas or solutions that have been overlooked. And as you say, people are talking about carbon dioxide, but there has not been enough discussion about methane or soot, which also is a major problem. So we've tried to get that into the dialogue, and in particular to get the state regulatory agencies to go out and image the state and really figure out who is the culprit, where is it coming from. And there are two possibilities. It's coming from someone that you can regulate, or it's coming from
the ground,
which you can't regulate. And all I can suggest is that we should say our prayers that it is coming from an organization that we can regulate, because we can go then tighten up the valves, tighten up the seals, upgrade the pipelines and so forth. If it's bubbling out of the permafrost, that's a very scary scenario that we don't want that to be the answer.
Okay. So you mentioned you go to the regulators in the state and they image. NASA has the big sensors for looking at what's happening here.
Right.
Are you including them in your thinking as part of the solution?
Yeah, so I haven't talked with NASA as much as I've talked with the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and with the state folks. And there may be someone at NASA working on it. It turns out that methane tends to use ground-based sensors, but there's a whole fabric of things that we need to do, both airborne, vehicle-borne, and space-borne, to really figure out where this methane's coming from.
So the head of Earth Sciences at NASA Ames, Steve Hipskind, he is a speaker at the February 13th event.
And I can ambush him and bring up my methane thing with him.
He is seeking opportunities for how NASA can help this state. So now I have a sense of what the Carbon Zero Institute does. It looks out at the big carbon-related and methane problems in the world, and it looks for applications, needs that aren't being addressed by some other major organization, the UN, the Defense of Natural Resources, whatever. And then you folks try to champion a solution, and you either help incubate it, help bring it to the public's attention, or invest, whatever. Is that right?
That's right. We've got about 20 of them listed on our website. We have something called the Gigaton Launchpad, where we put these up and we let people comment and vote on them, and are welcome to see them there.
Could you just say your website again for us?
So it's the carbonzeroinstitute.org, but the shorthand is www.cz-i.org.
Now, there seems to be another approach, another solution to reduce carbon emissions, and it's a regulatory one, I believe. It's cap and trade.
Yes.
And I think for most of us, we can understand capping something and trading something, but then when we think a little deeper,
right,
there's some kind of void in the thinking, the structure, the models of thinking about it that makes it very, very difficult for most
I can
people.
explain it to you.
I'd like you to do that.
So we have behind us here a bathtub that is about ready to overflow with water.
My bathtub.
Your bathtub, yes. It looks like it has about 1 inch to 2 inches left.
Okay.
Cap and trade says we're going to cap the amount of water allowed in that bathtub.
But it's gas you're referring to.
Right. This is a metaphor. A metaphor here. The water in your bathtub is a metaphor for the carbon dioxide in the air.
You're going to cap it.
And here's how we're going to cap it.
Okay.
We are going to raise the price of water to the young lady in the bathtub to a point where it is too expensive for her to put the last 2 inches of water into the bathtub. So cap and trade says we're going to use a kind of volatile dynamic pricing mechanism to make it too expensive to go too far.
And I want to ask, the scope of this bathtub that you're thinking about is, I think it's already being applied in the state of California.
Yes.
But you see it being applied across the entire United States?
Well, so we have 3 possible ways to regulate this.
Well, maybe I'm sending you off on a tangent.
No, it's a good tangent.
Okay.
We can put a cap on it. We can just tax it outright, or we can regulate it directly with laws. Now, the history of clean air and clean water, 99% of the solutions that we've implemented historically have not been cap and trade, have not been taxes, they've been direct regulation. So the history of environmental success around the world has been direct regulation, and there is a whole group of individuals who think that that's going to be the solution with carbon. We've got a group of people who believe that should be done with a tax, and then in Europe and in California, they're implementing cap and trade systems, which lawyers like because they're very intricate legally and quite a bit of complexity. So if you have a child who wants to be a lawyer, you should definitely be in favor of cap and trade. It's a full employment policy for lawyers.
So if I was making a painting of the aspect of cap and trade, where we're just talking about cap, I might pick up on this bathtub.
Yes.
And I would then think about, it would be the gas the carbon gas in the bathtub. And somehow or another, there'd have to be some sort of imagery that would keep more of whatever's in the bathtub going into the bathtub. Is that right?
Well, of course, we're trying to cut down on it going into the bathtub. Exactly.
So then I'd have to have a spigot coming out and maybe having some of what's in the bathtub go down deep into the earth, maybe? Is that an idea?
Yes, so we eventually are going to have to take CO2 out of the air and put it back in the earth where it came from. We're a little bit in denial about that at the moment. But the arithmetic is really compelling. It's almost inevitable that we're going to have to start taking CO2 out of the air.
Okay. And the other thing is trade now. If I have a bathtub full of something, I'm going to put a top on it. I'm going to stop sending so much into it, and I'm going to let some siphon off. What's the trade aspect of
Gee, you know, so we now have an image of a nude woman in a bathtub with a lawyer regulating the water, and now we're going to talk about trading things. This is going to be a very interesting piece of work. But the cap and trade, we've got certain things that are going to be emitting CO2 for decades to come. Air travel is one that comes to mind. It's going to be very hard to have electric airplanes. We're going to be burning jet fuel in them for a long time. So somehow the world's airlines have got to be able to offset that carbon. They have to be able to trade it with someone who is able to pull it out of the air and do something with it.
So I'm an airline, and I'm going to have to raise the price of tickets, and I'm going to keep buying jet fuel and using it and emitting a lot of carbon into the atmosphere. And I'm going to have to give money to somebody else who has a factory, a plant, or some business.
A ranch, a farm, some way to pull yes.
And they are doing their business, but somehow or another, they've kept under their cap, and they therefore get money maybe to keep staying under the cap or to fund their retirement. Is that the...
Yes, I think the way to think about it in the end game is the cap will be zero. The cap is, you'll start out, but you're going to lower it, and we're going to get to a point as a world where emissions really have to be at zero. And so in terms of planning out for the next 3 or 4 decades, there are going to be certain activities that inherently are going to become more expensive because they are emissions intense, and air travel is probably one of those.
But the airline is going to give money to the farmer. Is that right, or some other group?
So that's where we're going. Yes.
Okay, and then I have noticed Coca-Cola, Exxon, and Walmart are now developing their forecasts, their business models to include a carbon tax.
A fee of some sort.
A fee of some sort. And,
right.
And that could be a straight tax, or it could be part of a carbon trade.
Right, and it'll change depending upon what jurisdiction you're in. British Columbia is doing as a tax, California is doing it as a cap.
California is going cap and trade. How is the United States going to go? A carbon tax or cap and trade? And we don't have much time left.
My guess is that for the next decade, it's going to be a straight regulatory, legal, without either a cap or a trade.
Legal.
Just straight mandates from the EPA, much the way we did clean water and clean air. I think we'll follow that same path. At least that's what Congress is currently, the road they're on.
That is interesting. I now have a good sense of a little better sense of the big challenges of the state, of the nation, of the world. I understand what your organization does. You look to sponsor, support whatever solutions that really make a big difference. I got a better understanding of cap and trade. And
a hard thing to understand. Lots of people struggle with this.
Yeah, and now I want to make an announcement. I may come back to another event. Okay, my guest is Elton Sherwood. He is the executive director of the Carbon Zero Institute. He's also the author of a very important book, Addicted to Energy. And now I want to remind everyone that on February 13th at NASA Ames, John Laird, the Secretary of Natural Resources of the state of California, will be there to discuss California's water, search for sustainability and resilience. I will follow him and make the connection between the drought and climate change, and I'm going to suggest 3 strategies that helps the state attain sustainability and resilience. I'm going to be followed by Chief Steve Hipskin, the head of Earth Sciences, and he is going to discuss how NASA is trying to help the state. I hope you get on my website, killen.com, and take a look at the program and sign up. It would be great to meet you. I'd now like to ask, you enjoyed writing Addicted to Energy?
Yes.
First book?
Second.
Second book. And you enjoyed it?
Yes.
And you feel it's a great accomplishment?
I felt very satisfied. You know, you spend 4 or 5 years of your life writing something, and it gets done, and it's out, and people have enjoyed it.
And that is one of the foundations you stand on that enables you to be the executive director of such an important organization as the Carbon Zero Institute.
Well, I don't know, I would say how important it is, but yes, you know, you research things and you write on it, and hopefully that's helpful.
I think it's important. So, I'm getting ready to wrap up now, and my guest has been Elton Sherwood, Executive Director of the Carbon Zero Institute and author of Addicted to Energy. I'm Michael Killen. Stick around as long as we have time, or goodbye. Thank you. So, Elton.
Bye.